What is up, everybody? I'm Jason Trost, the host of the Business of Betting podcast. I'm joined today by Leigh Nissim, the CEO and founder of Future Anthem. Leigh is the founder of a company that's specializing in AI in the industry, which AI is a super, super buzzy term. So I'm curious to see what they're doing. He previously worked at Scientific Games and has been in and around the industry since 2005. So welcome to the pod, Leigh.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
So I would say by far you are the person with the most interesting background. So why don't we start by looking, for those of you that are listening, he has got a shelf with a bunch of books and picture frames and shoes on it. Why don't you pick one or two objects and tell me the provenance of those?
Oh, interesting. That's a good start. There's some Future Anthem memorabilia. So they're trainers that we just wore at ICE because we like to have branded trainers. So I quite like those. So you can see the orange stuff. Picture my wife and kids in Scotland. It was really cold in October cycling, and they're big now. They're 20 and 18. And that's my kids, that is, not my wife. Just very memorable there. Some overseas languages, dictionaries from my studies, French and Spanish. And then over there, Darth Vader money box that makes a nice noise if you put money in it, which always makes me laugh. My brother and my sister, and my wife again. My wife appears quite a lot, as she does in my life. So yeah, quite a personal. This is the office where she built her business as well, and I've been working with it since lockdown, really, although we're in an office in town ourselves. But yeah, so this is where a lot of Nissim family office has been developed from.
It's fantastic. What I really like about your background is got that mix of like, yeah, I have books and I read and I do shit, but it's very personalized. And it's like, I'm not trying too hard, and I do some cool things on the side. So it's really well done. I forget that Twitter site, but during COVID, it would rate people's backgrounds. I would give this a 9 out of 10.
Very good. That makes you feel a bit better. You never know, because that's one thing that people forgot, is just like you got to look inside everybody's homes during lockdown. And, wasn't it kind of, I still find it fascinating. We have one guy, I think he was at Conscious Gaming, and he had sports memorabilia all around his background, like unbelievable amount, and like stuff that would have cost a lot of money. And you're like, wow, this, like, you're seeing. And then another guy we deal with in Vienna, he has like 5 guitars hanging on his walls. So you get to know people just by that. You don't get that in an office environment. So we were let inside everybody's homes for like 2-3 years there, and so yeah, I also find backgrounds hugely interesting.
Yeah, I keep thinking I need to up my background game, but I don't. And so
you've got a couple of plants.
I got a plant. I did IKEA and did the plant shopping thing, and anyway. So tell me, so Future Anthem. So you founded it 3.5 years ago. Why don't you give me the founding story?
Sure. Been working in online gambling since 2005. Very privileged to lead some of the industry's biggest and best studios, IGT in 2012 to 2016, SG a couple of years in 2017-18. And when we were presented with roadmaps to approve and invest like $500,000 into games and game development, I'd ask questions like, well, how much money is that game going to make, and who are you targeting those games at? And people couldn't answer that, and my observation is game studios still don't really use data to build their content. And these games are producing a lot of transactions. So IGT is a couple of billion spins a month. SG is 2.5 billion spins a month. So, I was very curious about data, and all the customers that I was looking after, again, great businesses like GameSys, Sky, businesses in Canada, New Jersey, that we launched in, they were all kind of not really managing their game portfolio very well. They'd move them up, down, left, right, and chuck out a load of promotions. And these games are all very, very different, these casino games. So after SG, when I got put on a long period of gardening leave, I had the chance to think about what I wanted to do next, and just data and AI just made so much sense because I always had good success at doing things early. I could see this data opportunity coming from slot machines that no one was doing anything with. So the premise was, could I build an AI platform that ingests billions of transactions in real time to create an action to try and predict how players play when they're sitting in the gaming machines? And that's what we've done at Future Anthem now. So we've built this platform 3.5 years later, over 200 billion transactions. The business is now 42 of us, so good size team, fantastic team as well, good customer set. And we've moved on, right? So we've moved from just casino. We're now in sports and lottery as well. So we cover more gaming categories than just casino. And that was the premise of the business. So I wanted to do something on my own because I'd built a few big P&Ls previously. Wanted to do something very early, data and AI, and I could see a latent opportunity sitting with data and transactional data across the industry. And that's the genesis really of Future Anthem.
So there's two things that stick out to me there. One, it seems like you have a very strong background as a corporate guy. And to me, it's very rare for the corporate guy to break out and start a company. And the second thing is I think you don't have a technical background. And, the term AI sounds quite, it can be quite intimidating and scary. And it is quite technical when you get underneath the hood. So how does a corporate non-technical guy start a tech company?
It's a good question. So I'm quite lucky. I've had a couple of different shades of my career. I've worked in small businesses and big businesses. So my original family business is ladies fashion. So that was a small business that I used to work in as a kid from like the age of 12, 14 all the way through to 25, right? So small business at home. Starting my career in big with Deloitte and Lloyd's of London in insurance and finance, but then went back small again a couple of times in gaming. So I've done quite a lot of. I usually do big, small, big, small, big, small. I don't just do one thing or the other. And I've launched a couple of businesses. So in 1999, I launched a business called businessesforsale.com, which was a .com. We were back at the .com boom. We raised some money. I was the CFO, became the CEO. So done big and small. Just this time, it feels like the time to do smaller. The tech thing is really interesting. So I am a commercial first CEO, very definitely. I think there's commercial first, product first, tech first, kind of, or finance first. I'm a commercial first CEO for sure. But that's one of the things I've really enjoyed about the gaming industry is that it's high degree technology as well. And a commercial lens on technology is really important. Like how much is it going to cost? What's the return on your spends? And so I've really always been quite well aligned. So yeah, I'm not an AI specialist at all, but I can see the commercial opportunity and the applications of that data set, and just hire the best team you possibly can to tackle that. So yeah, a bit of a blend there, but yeah, interesting observation, which I sometimes self think about. I don't know whether other people think it, but yeah, it is interesting how you end up in these places.
So AI is one of these terms that, can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And it's thrown around the media a lot. Why don't you define AI in your words for the audience?
Cool. So it kind of comes a little bit into like, again, the name of Future Anthem and how I came to it. Because these machine learning models that our team builds. So the way Future Anthem runs is we do everything in Microsoft Azure, and we've built all our own machine learning models that sit inside the big data infrastructure. And Future Anthem, I don't think could have really existed or launched without all the developments that are done by Microsoft and Databricks and other great software vendors to make it affordable. So launching any early in 2019, I think would have been a challenge. And so we have this environment to build these machine learning models that listen to data at huge scale that you can it's almost unimaginable, and you try and predict certain things or outcomes or opportunities with that data. And we're trying to predict to improve how players play, how they have a better experience when they're sitting inside a gaming transaction. So how I think about AI is, how do you deploy and build these machine learning models to process data, vast data at scale, to come up with these singular recommendations and predictions that you can push and how can they self-learn and improve over time. So again, you can probably hear how I'm describing it, and that's because again, a non-tech CEO, I'm describing it from a kind of bird's eye of what I think it should do and what I think we do with it. How that gets manifested practically, again, that's where we have these very smart data scientists and engineers that figure all this out. But I'm very focused on the commercial applications and the outcomes that you can create from doing wonderful things with data, essentially.
Can you try to define machine learning for the audience? I think there's a lot of jargon in this space, and this is a podcast about sports betting, and we're going into the technical realm. So
Yeah.
I think it's a good detour to try to go into the details a little bit.
Sure. So, a couple of aspects around it. Again, these terms AI and machine learning, they're quite interchangeable. And we were like, well, should we be putting AI out there because everyone recognizes it, or machine learning? And we kind of speak much more around machine learning than we do around the AI. Just felt more natural. But this is, creating the platform for these models to learn and understand from the data that they receive. And so, for example, in a couple of the areas we work in, for example, around responsible gambling, my team deploys techniques around something like unsupervised learning. So we don't have data sets to train our models against that says look for those patterns, right? Look for these pre-existing labels of what harm looks like. But what we do when we have built these unsupervised learning models that go out to try and paint pictures and clusters of behaviors to identify risk and when a player might be crossing a risk threshold early. So again, there's no preset way of definition of what harm might be, but we're looking at the data to try and identify harm. So, like I say again, my team developing very smart models to try and understand and plow through vast data sets to identify behaviors and how you might react to or create an intervention to react to that behavior.
So a big part of your business is trying to get people to bet more, to spend more. I guess you call it in casino parlance. Is that correct?
So what way we talk about it is we're a commercial first business, yes. So we are about improving the player experience, and improving the player experience can be just they stay longer, they don't spend any more. It can be that they play more games and they don't spend any more. So it's not necessarily about spends, but it's very definitely about engagement and enjoyment. So yes, as a commercial first business, that is our priority. But really importantly, and this is where I think Future Anthem is leading the way, is when we built the business, it was very much about recognizing that in line with the latest regulations, you couldn't do that without considering player risk and player harm. So our responsible gambling models were some of the first that we ever built, and they work inside our commercial models. So whenever we're making an intervention, we're doing an RG check to see if this consumer is gambling with risk. If they're gambling with risk, then we might not recommend a promotion, or we might recommend that the operator actually takes a different action and actually starts to communicate with this customer that their betting's gone up and they need to slow down or whatever else it might be. So I think of us as a sustainable engine, but commercial first.
Yeah. So the fact that you do the commercial first, I guess it's kind of funny. I don't know that many businesses that would describe themselves as commercial second, but maybe there are. I know.
You just. I think the reason I say it is because you get challenged quite a lot. So you're an RG business. Well, we're not responsible gambling business, which is more compliance constrictive, right? So we've had to develop this parlance because people are trying to understand who we are, and what we're trying to do is like actually this is about engagement, but it's trying to do it sustainably. So we're creating a new category here, effectively. So it is a little bit. Your observation is right, and it seems a bit curious, but actually we're reacting to some of the feedback and questions we get.
I understand. So have you thought much about the philosophical line between encouraging people to gamble on one side, trying to protect them from what you just encouraged them to do on the other side? Like that's quite a juxtaposition.
Yeah, well, we think about it all the time because the way we think about this, so the way we think about responsible gambling and safer gambling, this is plus the sports and casino, just to be clear. We think it's a commercial challenge, right? Whereas at the moment, the whole industry's debate is around compliance and regulations. We think, this is as much a commercial challenge as it is a compliance challenge, in the sense of if you move to the risk zone, you're 4 times more likely to churn. If you stay in the safe zone, you have twice as many lifetime sessions. So keep players in the safe zone. It makes sense. So, but whereas what we see in all these different companies we work with, the compliance teams over there and responsible gambling teams over there, the marketing team are over there, and they've got totally different objectives, and they often don't talk to each other that much, right? So, whereas what I'm explaining to you is I think it needs to be like this. So, that philosophical point is exactly what we're tackling. It's not necessarily about making more money. It's about giving players better experiences when they're gambling with you, because there's thousands, hundreds of thousands of players that come every day, and it's the goal of everybody to retain them, as long as you can. But we think about that from a player experience orientation rather than just a singular monetization, or you must block, or whatever else it might be. So yeah.
But just to drill down into this a little bit, I think there is a contradiction in the fact that on one hand, you have an algorithm that's designed to optimize spend. I mean, you might look at it through the lens of length of play, but ultimately the goal is to drive revenue. And then on the other side, the goal is to optimize reduction of harm, I guess you might call it. And I think those are contradictory. Like, I don't think there is... I don't think you can optimize both of them. I think you have to cheat to one side or the other. So it's not, by the way, like every gambling company has to grapple with this, and it's very topical in the industry right now. I just think it's interesting because your company is trying to make a computer make these decisions. And, there's a lot of, I think one of the super interesting parts of AI is there's a lot of uncomfortable philosophical things that kind of come out of using AI, in that the computer will push humans to do very bad behavior, or can push like Facebook encouraging people to be thinner and stop eating and be depressed. And, there's a lot of uncomfortable side effects of optimizations. And so I think it's interesting to view this philosophical question through the lens of gambling or sports betting.
Yeah. And so I think we're at the forefront of that. And our RG models, for example, often find players earlier than other models. Like in what we've looked at, in over 70% of the cases, we might find someone earlier because we're sitting inside those games, right? So, but then it gets you hit a homepage of a website and you're presented with 6,000 games. How are you meant to know which ones are going to take your money in 2 or 3 minutes, and which ones can make your gambling experience last 15 minutes? And so this is the heart of our algorithms. They are trying to present the games that are appropriate to you, that you're most comfortable with based on your life stage, but all the time checking to determine whether your gambling behaviors are changing. So if you are loss chasing, the game or our system will react in a way that says, hey, look, slow down, right? Because we're identifying that change earlier. So that's why I think for us, we're right at that intersection, which we increasingly think about sustainability. It's like, how do you have an entertaining gambling experience, because it is an entertainment proposition, respecting risk and regulation. So I think for Future Anthem, that's how we balance ourselves in this philosophical debate, is that RG is genuinely at our core. Most of our competition, if not all of them, are just about monetization, right? So I think the way we justify ourselves, and the philosophical point that you raise there, is about really thinking through risk and what does that look like, and as a consequence, how the algorithms change and what they present to you. It might be a message, Jason, slow down, like take a pause, rather than, gamble more. So I think it's really important for the next phase of the industry that these things are blended together. And, I think you'll hear a lot more about sustainability in the next couple of years, because there's also still pockets of the industry that just not put their heads in the sand, but, well, it's not me, it's not my responsibility. And actually it is it's everybody's responsibility. So I think you'll see this blend mature much more over the next couple of years here. And like you say, it's very, very interesting.
Who are your competitors? Who are the other ones in the industry?
So there's a couple that were acquired last year, and Well, I say they're competitors. We don't all do directly the same thing. There's a company called Vakes, who were a bit earlier than us. They were acquired by Sport Radar last year. And they've maybe done more work in sports than we had at that point. I'd argue that we would be stronger in casino and responsible gambling. There's another company called Graphite that was acquired by Optimove, and they do a lot of personalization. But when we look at them, they seem to have more kind of tooling to manage games, but not so much AI orientation and data orientation. So they're just a couple of examples, but other than that, there's not really any other competition that we significantly look at all the time. There's a couple of new companies that come, but often people have got different angles. Or I think one of the things we've got is we've got a lot of scale. We've got a great customer base, a good team, and a great technical platform. So yeah, I think our path is feels a little bit clear right now, which is exciting.
Great. So you would describe there's three types of CEOs: commercial, product, and tech. I would definitely describe myself as a tech with a slight focus on product as a CEO. And my natural inclination, I don't know if it's out of naivety or philosophy, but my natural inclination is we built everything ourselves. As a big company guy who's now on the outside looking in, why from your perspective, why do you think companies don't build this themselves? Like, why is there a lane for because a lot of your customers are big, well-funded, well-staffed companies. Like you're a smaller company. Why can't they hire a few machine learning people to go build this? What's your
Yeah,
take on that?
yeah. I think it's a multi-dimensional answer. There's no single answer. So I mean, firstly, the data is very disparate, so it's often in multiple parts. So if you think about how these gaming systems are, you've got your sports platform, you've got your casino platform, you've got your poker, your bingo. So you've got multiple platforms, you've got CRM that you're plugging in, CMS. So there's this complex technical ecosystem with data existing in pockets. So the data is often very disparate and hard to pull together into one place. So companies often find that quite difficult. Then what we see is that often companies are major on one product category but not on the other. So they're deep on sports, and nobody touches that. But on casino, they don't have as much resourcing behind that. And even in casino, again, you've got hundreds of vendors with data in different pockets. So I think sometimes it's quite hard for these companies themselves to bring it all together. Priorities as well. They've got a lot to do. I got to launch in Ohio, Ontario. I've got regulations, so I've got all this stuff to do. I really want to do personalization, but I don't have a bigger team to do it. Hiring's tough for them. They're often in offshore jurisdictions, getting data science talent, and I might be able to get one or two, but I find it really hard to scale it. When I scale it, I don't have the technology for them to work in to build their models. They spend all their time in data engineering and trying to get data to a place they can actually run their models. They don't necessarily have the expertise. Our models, each of them will have run through around 20 to 30 billion transactions. So the accuracy of our models is already super high. So if I'm sitting with some of these big companies, I can either maybe do some of this myself, but actually, could I work with a best of breed third party that can get me to where I want to get to, probably 4 times as quick for a quarter or a third of the cost. Unfortunately, many of them think that it is better to do it that way. What we think about, Jason, again in the next phase, is we think this area is much more around a hybrid approach. You will obviously do some of this stuff yourself, right? But there'll be some stuff you don't. We have metadata on 20,000 casino games. We're building a very substantial metadata in sports. We massage that, we manage it, we sculpt it. We can license that feed itself. So I think it will be much more a combined approach in the next phase, rather than, well, we just do this in house and we never use out-house, or it's just too big and too meaty for companies to tackle, unless they've got deep pockets and they want to take a long-term view in some of these areas. But even then, it's still quite hard for them. So yeah.
What trends have you noticed from consumer behavior? Are customers doing the same games at the same amount of time, or do those behaviors change over time?
Um, they do definitely change over time. There's quite a lot. I think we should talk about better sports, by the way, if your audience is mostly around sports, because we've done a lot of work there as well. Yeah, I mean, there's quite a big conversation in casino at the moment around RTP, which is return to player, because there's like a downward pressure on RTPs as companies need to earn more to pay for their bills and the taxes and regulations and all of those things. So we're absolutely seeing kind of a move towards lower RTP, but that's not necessarily what the consumer wants, right? So and what we do see as well is the casino industry is a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy because uh, the same games get promoted because they're in the algorithms as being the most popular. A lot of those algorithms are around popularity, so they promote the same games. They're the ones that get the free spin. So it's always the same games that are coming up and getting played again and again. So it's really hard for the medium and long tail to get enough airtime to, even if they're really good games, to get enough airtime to be truly successful. Against some of those old classics that have got a bigger, deeper installed base. So yeah, quite still a lot of consistent behaviour happening across casino.
What have you noticed in sports?
Sports was younger on, so I couldn't comment at that level of depth
Okay.
on sports. So we launched our first sports betting client midway through last year. Poland's largest sports book, a brilliant business called STS, who put their arms around us and said, we want to do some stuff in real time, and we have real time technologies. And so they sent us their data in July. We got product up and running in October, which was just brilliant from both teams. And There, we're doing bet recommendation and exit predictions, and trying to understand how someone might be playing. So yeah, again, not to the level of granularity on casino just yet, but again, really good trajectory on sports.
And what are exit projections?
So what we try and see is the risk of exit, right? The risk of churn is when we're looking at at sports. So for example, it could be you've built your ACCA, but you've had a losing leg, right? And maybe that might be quite hard for some to identify. We identify that as soon as the bet's settled, and again, maybe you should take an action because this customer's just been unlucky. So give them an award to say, hey, look, we recognise you've been unlucky. Have another go. We might look at things like, again, looking at their last five bets and what's their spend profile over their last five bets, and looking again at correlate that against their RTP, their return, to say what's their likelihood of risk and whether the sportsbook should react to that risk of departure. So we're looking at a combination of different things around bets and bet settlement to try and identify whether this customer's at risk of churn. And if they are at risk of churn, we create these little labels that go along with the risk and say why. And that's what we send back to the CRM, and the CRM takes an action to say, okay, well, we think this consumer is going to leave, or they've got a X% likelihood of departure, and therefore give them this retention message.
When I was at ICE a week or two ago, there was a banker who described, I might be getting the numbers wrong, but I think he said if a sports betting customer is worth 1 unit, a casino customer is worth, I want to say 2.5x that unit, and a sports betting casino customer is worth 3 or 4x. I'm very, I'm not from the casino world. We're actually we might be the only sports book that doesn't have a casino. So I know very little about that world. What are the differences between sports betting customers and casino customers? Do you think there's a lot of overlap, like in behavior, or are they quite different?
Well, they definitely play different types of games. So, I mean, that's one of the first differences. And it sounds like you're suffering from the same post-ice cough and cold that I've been suffering from as
Oh
well.
man.
Yeah. No, exactly. And then sports customers, just as a category, it's I always try and look at what's inherent in the products. Casino is a high velocity product, always available high velocity product. So your betting opportunities are very available, and that again links back to risk, right? So um, and these games, can be quite volatile. Whereas sports is obviously event based, more periodic, so my betting opportunities are fewer. Although obviously the growth of the industry has been, in part driven by the amount of betting markets available to a sports betting customer. So I think again, when I look at the product differences, people who like betting more frequently and consistently, they're sitting in casino or they're doing both, right? So when they have idle time, they'll go and do casino as well. Whereas again, if I'm more aligned to sports, I'm more recreational. I'm just doing sports bets. So I think there's quite a lot around the actual product components that drive the behaviors and the types of person that you are, and things like time on device. So, and the other thing people don't often talk about, that in my observation I've seen in my career, is around demographics. So I don't know if we don't take PII data, so I don't know the proportion of female sports bettors, but very definitely in casino and slots, it's much higher than people think about. So again, like female and women who like to gamble will probably be more disposed towards bingo or slots or casino or soft gaming than they might do on sports betting, for example. So yeah, very definitely spend differences, and that's what all gambling, not all, because you're not that example, but many gambling companies try to do is have people playing on every product, because that maximizes their value to the gambling company. So therefore, that sports cross sell into casino is a fundamental path of success for a lot of these gambling companies. And often, when you look at, particularly in my time in poker, you look at poker networks. Some poker networks would be much more driven by casino than poker. I mean, you only need to look at the success of PokerStars Casino, being one of the world's biggest online casinos from being a pure only poker product, because the cross sell from poker to poker to casino. So yeah, casino is a very important monetization product for I don't say all the industry, but a significant proportion of the industry for sure.
Awesome. Well, before I let you go, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Do you know, it's funny that, because I'm 50 now, and I often think when I grow up, I'm kind of realizing that I'm probably already grown up. What do I want to be when I always wanted to be a DJ.
Okay.
Yeah. So I still go to a lot of gigs, and I really like it. I'm too rubbish to be a DJ, and I'm not very musically inclined. But yeah, if I had my time over again, I think I'd probably spend more time trying to be a DJ if I could. That's from my romantic side. I'm not sure how realistic or practical it is. What about you when you grow up? Well, like
You can't ask the host a question. I want to do another startup. I want to be, I like the entrepreneurial journey. So like that's probably my next big tick, is to do another startup. I'm really interested in the energy space right now. There's a lot going on there. I don't have any expertise in it, besides I'm interested in it, but I find the whole green revolution and electricity thing very, very fascinating.
Yeah. I think one of the things people don't talk about with startups, because we haven't really spoken about this so much, is like energy. I think, oh my God, you need a lot of energy and stamina.
How is that as a first time founder in your late 40s? Like, did you struggle with that?
Uh, I wouldn't say I struggled with it, but I'm the sole founder, and I think I found it. I talk about lifting. You have to lift so much. The admin is just huge. And so you're building a business, building a team, thinking about the financing of the business, and then you have to do pension. I mean, oh my God, the whole amount, it's just huge. So many stages, the lifting is just enormous. I'm a very fit guy, but even then I was like, oh my God, just this is exhausting. So I think coming into my 51st year, I've definitely said need a couple of more pauses and checkpoints, because you need to gather and I sprint a lot in business, so I go really fast and then expect everyone to sprint with you, and you have to realize not everyone sprints, and sometimes people also need to take breath. So yeah, that's why I said when you said you're not a starter, I'm I think if I was going to do another one, I'd have to have had a bit of a break to recoup some energy to go again for sure.
Oh, I'd definitely take a break. I think since I mean, I did a small startup by myself, so like technically it would be my third startup. But I think you learn shortcuts, you know, just sort of like probably in your corporate career, you learn some tricks so you kind of speed things up. But it is like I'm so happy that I did the bulk of my business building before I had children. You know, probably through your other career, you're financially secure enough to go do a startup, but it's really tough later in your career, not only energy wise and time wise, but financial security wise, to take the risk to do a startup.
Yeah, well, you say that's been a big part of my. I mean, we have two small businesses in my family, right? Future Anthem and my wife's business, WM People. So financial risk was high on our list. I mean, her business gave us a loan to start up, and we borrowed her offices and payroll and all that stuff to get started as we needed to. So that was fortunate. Took on a bunch of debt, which I still hold and have, and my credit card bills are going up every single month. So, I'm on my last month of school fees. Next term is the last school fee payment, so we're gonna have to celebrate that one. But yeah, funding school fees through that is tough. So I would say financial security has been, even at this point, and that's why I realised I needed to raise capital, because I couldn't fund it myself. And again, one of the best things I ever did. And structuring a good cap table is really important. We got a brilliant investor base, and so financial security actually was quite front of mind for us, but this just felt very natural to do. And so yeah, very very glad I have. Very very glad I have.
Well, I wish you the best. It sounds like you're off to a great
Thank you.
start with paying customers and a good lane for commercialization and future growth. So wish you the best of luck. Thank you for joining the pod, and hope the listeners enjoy it as well.
Thank you. Thanks for hosting me, Jason.
Cheers.